So next up, we have Kelli Lane, who is the Managing Director of Co-Collective and Interim CMO, I nearly promoted you there, Kelli, of DMEXCO. She is going to be speaking on the topic of the unspoken outcome of the pandemic. And she calls that losing creativity. So Kelli, the floor is yours.
Thank you, and thanks everyone for joining. Before the pandemic started, this was our behavior. We woke up, we checked social, news, email, weather, we had breakfast, and then we got ready to go to the office. Now, we commute about 4 steps to our home office, sit down and stare at a computer for 9 hours a day, sometimes more. While I love my job as the MD of Co and the interim CMO of DMEXCO, to do my best work, I need to be creative. And sitting by myself in the same room all day is not exactly sparking creativity. Unfortunately, it does get a little worse. What happens for many people at the end of the workday is they stare at more screens. They have no real connection. They spend their whole day Zooming with school and the office, and to decompress, they're in front of yet another screen. Well, what's the impact of all of this? It's not great. We are at risk of losing creativity. This is a pretty scary thought. And so I started to dig into what actually creates creativity. The frontal cortex of our brain is where creative juices run. And just like animals atrophy in captivity, our creativity is at risk of atrophy because we're not exercising our creative muscles. It's more imperative than ever that we identify and prioritize what refills up our cup, what gets our creative juices flowing. Here's the good news. There's been tons of research done around the human psyche. We humans are wired to touch, connect, have physical interaction, right? We're not robots. So we can prevent creative atrophy. Just like any muscle, we need to exercise our frontal cortex. We need to stimulate it and give it time to rest and recover. A few months ago, I started consciously thinking about how to implement stimulate, rest, and recover habits into my day. And one of the people I most enjoy talking to is the CEO of DMEXCO. It's a high-growth startup that's revolutionizing medicine. We fell into this habit of actually calling each other to talk. I know, novel idea in today's remote culture of Zoom and Slack and text and email, but in the absence of actually being able to sit across from each other and share a meal or whiteboard an idea, we do the next best thing. We talk. We do it without the mental burden of staring at ourselves through Zoom. I've also been going for walks without headphones, without the noise, and I've purposely been doing more arts and crafts with my 2 toddlers. You might ask, is it working? Well, the most impactful contributions I've made over to the business in the past 6 months do have a common thread. They were ideas that were sparks that I thought of while I was making Play-Doh sculptures or creating sandcastles with my kids. And then I built out those ideas in my head while I was on long walks without the noise. So step away from your computer, go laugh with someone, go take a walk, sit on an empty beach, create habits that make space for your brain to recharge and prioritize moments of real connection. You'll be amazed at how creatively charged you feel.
Thank you, Kelli. Great presentation. We heard earlier from Resh, who also had a rally cry for the need for the creative side of the industry to kind of wake up and recognise what's going on around us. So what advice would you give to leaders of either, I guess, holding groups that own creative agencies or creative agencies around how they kind of maybe take some more brave decisions around change?
I think they have to embrace it. I mean, I think that if you think about the curve of the pandemic, the first few weeks, everyone was in complete and utter kind of panic mode. Everything was new and uncomfortable and hard. And I think that the sign of a really good culture and a really good company is one that will adapt and lean into the curve, if you will. And I think that we have to find ways to support our teams to, like I said, refill their cups, get what they need to get themselves creatively charged. If that means creating, walking meetings or breaks throughout the day or changing your vacation policy to allow for more fluid time off, I think we have to lean into it.
Yeah, agree with you. And I think the best companies are probably the CEOs are sitting with their HR and employee teams and going, how do we make a different kind of culture that actually encourages? I think maybe a lot of leaders thought before this that working at home meant less productivity. But thankfully, if there's one good thing from this pandemic, that has taught them that the world moves on. If you were to give advice to a leader about what they should change about their working culture beyond some of those things you said, what would it be?
I think that the kind of age-old work-life balance, what is that, right? Like,
Yeah.
I know that because I have young kids, they wake up early. I'm usually working before most people are up and out at their computer screens. And that doesn't mean that I can expect everyone to be sitting there or responding in real time. I think we have to embrace, this 24/7 fluid remote culture, and take that forward with us. I fundamentally do not think anyone is going back to a 5 days in the office, 9 to 5, at least no one in the creative spaces anyway. It's just not, like you said, we've disproven the need to always be in person with people, but we need to find ways to have real connection. And that doesn't necessarily mean, extreme ends of the spectrum.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly agree with you. And how does creativity kind of adapt going forward? I mean, we've had a lot of talk in this conference about technology, about artificial intelligence, and creativity is a long proven driver of growth, as much as data is. And people seem to argue about, is it data, is it creativity, which seems like a pointless debate given they both are important. So how does someone driving creativity make sure that there is the right balance between marketing as a science and as an art form?
I think you have to embrace both. Human beings have been creating since cavemen lived in caves, right? We see those pictures of drawings and handprints, and there has been, we are wired to create. And I think that, the best marketing, you have to build from a foundation of the science, of the data, of the things that you do know, but you also have to recognize that there's going to be an art to it. You need to build from a place of as much knowledge as you possibly can have, and then trust your instinct. Creativity, the best ideas are not necessarily the ones that make sense on paper.
A brilliant place to leave it. Kelli, thank you so much for joining us and for such insightful 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time.